another until eventually, you say, well, you really have to be a part of something greater than ourselves, which is a group, this group in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good comments. So let's move on to the class. We're on to Revelations chapter 15, where um, John sees a revelation from heaven of the seven angels having the seven last plagues. And the Orthodox interpretation of this is totally different than what we're going to give out here, because the seven last plagues are seven labors that the disciple has to uh, consummate in order to finish his mission here upon the earth as in physical embodiment. And so that's what we're given here is totally different, but it also corresponds much more exactly than any physical representation that or manifestation of the book of Revelation. Okay, we'll continue here. It says, after this, he looked and, heaven was open and he saw beyond this realm these seven angels. And I looked and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was open. As we ended last time, we talked about the tabernacle. There was a portable tabernacle, had within it the Holy of Holies, and within the Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant. And in the Ark of the Covenant was what? What was in there?
Uh, was in the Ark of the Covenant.
Sure.
Well, the Ten Commandments of Moses.
Yeah, a lot of the writings that Moses received from God. So the
Oh,
Ark of the Covenant is symbolic of that which is really in us, within the realms of your own inner self, are the writings and words of God, and they can be found there. And so this this tabernacle in the wilderness kind of represents uh, the disciple wandering around in this wilderness that we call the earth. And within him is the Ark of the Covenant. And what's interesting about the Ark there in that roving tabernacle they had was that it was kind of a makeshift thing they put together that was in the wilderness, yet it had the Ark within it. Yet when they had the beautiful temple built in Jerusalem, in the Holy of Holies, there was just a blank space. There was no ark. So he went from having the precious ark in this roving portable tabernacle to when they had the most beautiful temple, there was no ark in there. It was gone. Nobody knew where it went. And
I'm going to add to that. I have a couple books. In fact, I gave a presentation a few years ago on the Ark of the Covenant, and it allegedly contained two emerald tablets, and on the tablets was information from Atlantis that had been compiled by the high priests, and it was all about enlightenment from of the individual by connecting with the soul and uh, creating heaven on earth, and the highest principles that were known at that time um, were put onto these engraved into these two emerald tablets, and they were in the ark. So it was a lot of deep occult mystical revelations in the Ark of the Covenant, but mostly it pertained to the development and the advancement of the individual soul.
yeah, it would be great if they actually the ark was revealed at one time or another. And now several people claim to have the ark. The most substantial claim, I think, is those people in Ethiopia. Then they guard it pretty much day and night, and they don't. They feel that there might be a revelation given that they're going to reveal the ark, but I'm surprised no one has ever tried to steal it from them to reveal it. But anyway, then there's legends about the ark was the Knights Templar. There's legends that they took it to America and buried it, hid it somewhere in the America itself before Columbus even came. And there's all kinds of legends about the ark, about where it
It
might
went
be.
to Glastonbury. It went to England first of all before it came here, but it went to Glastonbury. It was buried below a small church over there. Yeah.
Then there's been replicas of the ark, so it's quite possible that we may come across a replica that's actually not the original ark, and maybe we'll think it is the original. So there's always that possibility. But the ark definitely had a lot of power behind it. It was interesting. One time it was stolen by their enemies, and everybody got ill, so they give the ark back. And they
Well,
didn't. I
and
mean, they
Uzzah,
didn't want it anymore.
remember Uzzah went to straighten the Ark of the Covenant and reached out and touched it to put it upright and was killed.
Yeah, yeah. Here he was. No good deed goes unpunished, like they say.
Just wanted to, it was going to tip over. He just wanted to straighten it and got
Yeah,
zapped.
yeah. Well, that indicates that there was something about it, probably give off some type of radiation. And it wasn't that God struck him, but there was probably some radiation
Yeah.
connected with it that was harmful to a regular person. Okay, the next verse reads, and seven angels came out of the temple, having the seven plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, having their breasts girdled about with golden girdles. Now, this clothing of the angels here is very close to the description in the Old Testament of the clothing that the high priest wore when he entered the Holy of Holies. So that's kind of an interesting correspondence. So the higher part of our nature is symbolized by the high priest that enters the Holy of Holies, and he's able to open that and read the laws of God within the Holy of Holies. And so this is symbolic here of the disciple opening the Holy of Holies within himself. And to do that, he has to be in white linen, pure, and it's girdled about with golden girdles. The white linen symbolizes he's let go of all of his guilt. And you don't let go of all your guilt by realizing you're perfect, because none of us are perfect by any measure, but realizing that us as in the image of God, that we are reflections of God, and we in our pristine state are in a state of purity. And when we return to recognizing who we really are, we let go of that self condemnation. And when you let go of that self condemnation, then you are clothed with this white, pure linen, and you're girdled about with golden girdles. The gold is symbolic of purifying yourself through trial and error. And as you go through life, you experience a lot of stressful things that you have to go through. And for gold to be pure, it has to go through a fire. And this is the same thing with a disciple. He has to go through the fiery elements of life and uh, handle them correctly. And when he does this, he has that additional purification so that he can uh, participate in these seven labors of the seven symbolic seven angels. And one of the four beasts gave unto the seven angels seven golden vials full of the wrath of God who liveth forever and ever. What's interesting here, it says one of the four beasts. So the question is, which one of the four beasts was the one that gave the vials to the seven angels? What's interesting about the four beasts is they symbolize four aspects of the natal chart in astrology, the zodiac. And so, which sign do you think was represented by the beast that gave the angels the golden vials? What sign are we entering into?
Aquarius, it would have been the face of the
Right,
Aquarian man of the server.
right. It would be the beast that had the face as of a man, it says, and that would represent Aquarius.
Yeah.
So, for us in this particular time, especially as we're entering the Aquarian age, it was the we're told here, in other words, that the beast, and the reason one of the reasons these now the beast here is entirely different than the beast that controls the earth, because these are beasts that are around the throne of God, and they represent the link between heaven and earth. So they represent the divine quaternary, which is linked to the higher part of ourselves. So we have these four beasts around the throne of God that link us, and here we have the link to the Aquarian age. And okay,
And what's your sun sign there, Joe?
yeah, I'm February 6th, so I'm born in the Aquarian age.
You must be one of those positive, good beasts then.
Yeah, of
Good guy
course,
beast.
not everybody born in the Aquarian sign is uh, conducive to the Aquarian age, but some of them are.
You are.
But everybody has Aquarius in their chart somewhere, and everybody has all the planets. So what you want to do is look and see where the Aquarius influences in your chart is, and that would shed some light on personal steps you can take to move yourself into the Aquarian age with success. Now he says this here, and the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple till the seven plagues of the seven angels were fulfilled. Now, there's another earlier verse that we talked about way back in Revelation 3 that talks about this temple. And let me read that. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is the New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from God, and I will write upon him my new name. So he talks about when a person overcomes, he's made a pillar in the temple of God, and he shall go no more out. In other words, when the disciple has consummated these seven missions, then he's entitled to return to the temple and go no more out. He doesn't have to incarnate anymore unless he decides he wants to for some reason. But he doesn't. His service is consummated to the extent that he has power to go no more out of the temple on the other side. Um, but you always have free will. A person that has achieved that can always decide, well, I want to add some extra service to humanity. Looks like they need some help. So maybe that entity will incarnate for that purpose, but he doesn't have to go out after he achieves these labors. Okay,
That's a good reincarnation scripture.
yeah, that is. So here it says no man was able to enter the temple, and I think what's really saying enter the temple in a way that you go no more out until these seven plagues of the seven angels were fulfilled. So the disciple moves forward, and he doesn't see all the aspects. He doesn't see all the finished product, but he knows he's headed the right direction. And it talks about the smoke here, and the smoke hides from the disciple the consummation. It's quite possible that Jesus himself didn't know completely the consummation of the work that he did in the few years that he was here. He just knew the direction that he had to take, but he didn't know everything that would transpire because of his work.
So is the smoke like the cloud?
Yeah, the smoke is always like a veil of some type that we have to go through. And it says the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And so this smoke hides the temple of God from us. Even the advanced disciple doesn't see through the smoke completely, but he knows the temple is there. So let's pick on somebody. Adam, you you do you have a sense that something is there deep within yourself, but you can't quite get a complete a hold of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty obtuse, but yeah, it's there.
Yeah, but you still feel the impulse to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm driven by it for
Yeah.
sure.
And that's kind of the description here. The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And so we, every disciple has this smoke that hides certain things from him, but he knows the temple is there, the glory, he knows the glory of God is there. He knows that something is there and he follows. Do you um, identify with that, Sydney?
Yes, definitely. I feel like we get glimpses of different things as you guys were talking about. We get these revelations that build on each other, but we don't always see the culminating vision for our life unless it's especially helpful for us to do so. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, my friends, we'll go on to the next chapter here. Here it describes the what the seven angels are dishing out to through the disciples to humanity. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, "Go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth." Now, the word wrath uh, the Greek word for that can be translated several different ways, and one of the ways it can be translated, it's a little bit more accurately, is passion. It's more like the God has a passion, and that passion from God is radiated and poured out upon the earth through the various disciples that are here upon the earth. And the first angel went, and he poured it out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them that worshipped his image. Okay, the first angel then, where did he pour out his vial?
On the earth.
Upon the earth. And what part of your being does that symbolize, Curtis?
Physical.
Earth. Right. In other words, the first labor that the disciple has to undergo involves practical things of the earth itself. And what all would that involve? And why would men that have the mark of the beast be afflicted, it says, with a noisome and grievous sore? Okay. So this is quite interesting when you think about it. The first labor then involves practical teachings that the disciple gives in relation to physical well-being. And have you noticed that the resistance people have, like Cindy was just talking about Reiki and alternative healing methods. But have you noticed how much resistance there is among Orthodox physicians and humanity to such a teaching? Have you noticed that, Cindy?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they think that's just a bunch of hocus pocus, you know.
It's getting a little bit more ingrained though. Like I took that class through Harvard and they're doing studies these days, right? On
Right,
the impact
right.
of things like Reiki. Yeah.
And there are doctors that have created legitimate cure, pretty much cures for cancer, or they have a high cure rate, and they're thrown in jail because they're not following orthodoxy. And so the result of that is the people that reject all these cures, like also with the latest coronavirus, there were quite a few doctors that worked with ivermectin and zinc and different things. And I've seen testimonies where they've had, out of 100 patients, they've cured all 100 of them. And they were attacked, lost their licenses, thrown in jail. And and what's the result of those that have the mark of the beast that follow these outward authorities? Is they get ill, they suffer their cancers, they suffer their viruses, and they have noisome and grievous illnesses because they follow the mark of the beast. And if they were to escape the mark, they could be healed. But they refuse to the message. And so we see representations of disciples that are representing this first angel. They have teachings, say, that tell us how to heal ourselves, how to have well-being on the physical level, and they are attacked. There was a naturopath healer in Boise some years ago who was accused of just prescribing a medicine without a license, and kind of a trumped up charge on the poor guy. He got 20 years in prison. 20 years. I couldn't believe that's more than most murderers get. You know what the average length of time a murderer serves in the United States?
Probably around 8 years.
Real close, 7 years on the average. And this poor guy got 20 years for just trying to help people out. No one was complaining.
Is he still in jail?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything of him. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't die there. But I haven't heard anything about him since he was sentenced. Hasn't been anything in the news or anything.
Well, the Tibetan says that the medical industry, which is now obviously very corrupted, would turn its attention towards studying the seven centers and the glands in healing and finding out where the energy blocks are. I think that's what Reiki does, isn't it, Sydney?
Yeah, yeah. It can use the seven centers, or it cannot. It depends. Reiki's Japanese technically, but most people use the chakra system too.
So what's interesting about these seven angels is these are seven labors that the disciples of the world undergo, and they are seen as something to by the establishment, by those who have the mark of the beast, as something that has to be opposed and done away with for the good of humanity. That's what the mark of the beast, the outward authorities, are always against an advance that helps us to become healthier and happier and more independent. The just out of the woodwork, if you go forward and you do something, teach anything, even like get an invention. We hear stories about people making inventions that will help humanity, and they are attacked and their inventions burned. And yeah, Wilhelm Reich invented the orgone therapy, and the establishment attacked him. They put him in jail, and he died there, and they burned all of his records, just burned them. You know, the authorities from the United States government did that. And so,
But
yeah.
are we moving out of those energies though as we move into the Aquarian age and
Right.
like
And as the missions of these seven labors are successful in among the various disciples of the world, right, the smoke becomes cleared, and eventually the truth becomes so obvious that it has to be accepted. And then things move up on another level, you know, just like slavery, for instance, was accepted by the ancient world, not just the southern states in the United States, but ancient Rome, uh, Egypt, Greece. All the ancient empires had accepted slavery. That was just norm. And those that anyone that had come up with the idea of that slavery needed to be done away with, they were attacked. And so it was an institution that was considered benevolent for society for thousands of years. And it took a lot of sacrifice, culminating in the Civil War with the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people to finally move us beyond that. And still, it was a slow move, but it did happen.
could
And
that align with verse 2? Because it's a physical thing as well, like all like the deaths in wars, or it seems like kind of these physical battles, whether it's, killing people over their like beliefs or killing in wars over slavery. Does that kind of all align with verse 2?
right, and in for this first labor, like it says, it was upon the earth. Considers the things of the earth that would be political things, medical things, scientific things. Like until the James Webb Telescope took pictures of the early galaxies, anyone that questioned the big the orthodox views of the Big Bang Theory, they were ostracized and they didn't get any funding. They were criticized by other scientists. But now we've got so much evidence that there's there's something we're getting wrong about how the universe began, and they can't figure it out. But now the evidence is so strong that the ones that question it before the James Webb Telescope are now looked upon as really innovative thinkers now. And a few years ago, they were completely ostracized. They're still not entirely accepted, but at least they're not seen as crazy anymore. The people that questioned the age of the universe. Um, there was a small handful of scientists that did question. They thought according to the Big Bang calculations, the universe is 13.7 billion years old, but there's other scientists that didn't get any funding at all because their thinking was outside the mainstream. So they had to fund their own thinking and write their own books and get them published outside the mainstream. And quite a number of science, or not quite a number, but a small number says, well, there's something wrong. It would take longer for the galaxies and groups of galaxies to form than 13.7 billion years. The universe has to be older than that. And now the James Webb Telescope has given us ironclad information that cannot be disputed, that something is wrong with our calculations. They haven't figured out what's wrong yet, but they're at least questioning now, and it's open to discussion now. But before James Webb Telescope, it was just not open for discussion. And so we have this resistance in every line of thought there is, whether it be education, politics, science, religion, philosophy. The beast is out there telling us what reality is. And if what you get within yourself conflicts with that, then you need to be attacked and set straight and conform to what the outward authorities' consensus is. We have to conform to that. And yeah, consensus, that word is used a lot with global warming, because we have this consensus about how global warming works and how much carbon dioxide we can have in the atmosphere and what it does. We have consensus on that. You can't question it. If you question it, then you're attacked as a climate denier, and you don't get any funding if you're a scientist. You can't really make a living. And make a living, you have to go along with the consensus. And what your research shows has to go along with the consensus. If you have legitimate research to show something different, then you are attacked. And the result of all this on the physical plane is those who have the mark of the beast will suffer physically. And health is really a great avenue to see how that works, because those who attack the healers, the true healers of the world that are trying to move us forward, they suffer tremendously. And cancer treatment is a really great example. Curtis's mother and my sister had cancer, and she took all the orthodox treatment. She went along with the whole thing, and we tried to steer her toward the alternative, but she wanted to depend on the doctors. She thought that was the wisest thing to do. She suffered tremendously, a lot more than if she didn't have any treatment at all. Wouldn't you say, Curtis?
I'd say so. Yeah, we were studying alternative routes, but she would have had to fly to Texas to one of these anti-cancer institutes, and there were all kinds of alternative solutions that were presented to her. And I told her, I said, you know what, why don't you get 12 of your best friends and we'll come and lay our hands on you and give this cancer no quarter and we'll command it to leave. And they just kind of laughed at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was an inspiration. I've had a strong feeling if we could have done that, we could have kicked cancer out of her body.
Yeah. Could have worked. Yeah. I've seen people that are into New Age thinking and they seem to reject the mark of the beast. And then when they come down with something like cancer or heart problems or something, and the doctor tells them, hey, this is what you got to do. They will do that and discard everything they've ever learned about natural healing. Except they'll
Mm,
do a little bit on the side, but they'll put their main emphasis on what the doctor tells them to do. And they suffer tremendously. They suffer the noisome and grievous sorrows that is prophesied here of those who reject the the teachings of the message of the disciple. Okay, any comment on that?
Just a little thing, following the law of correspondences, where the earth represents the physical nature, couldn't that represent also the struggle of the disciple to let go of attachments to the physical world?
Yeah, yeah. And if that's a really good point, because again, a lot of the pain that we suffer is because we're too attached to the physical world. Let's say, for instance, you're married and you think everything's going cool, and your wife has an affair, you wind up getting a divorce. If you are really attached to that marriage, you're going to suffer tremendous pain. And a lot of people, 5 years after the divorce is over, they still want the spouse back, and they can't get them back, and they suffer the rest of their life because of that severance. And so if the disciple can reach that point of non-attachment where he just accepts whatever happens, he is able to accept it without strong attachment, then he won't suffer that pain. But if he has attachment to anything, whether it be the physical, the emotional, or whatever, that when he's attached to the things of the earth, those things of the earth can bring him tremendous pain. And that letting go releases him from that, so he doesn't suffer these noisome and grievous illnesses that is predicted here.
The Tibetan says all unhappiness is caused by an attachment to the physical plane.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
basically that's true. If you're unhappy about anything, well, you got to look and see what you got to let go of.
right, Maya, the
Yeah,
halls.
some of those gurus in India, the only thing they own is clothing they have on their body at the time, and yet they're happy. They don't have anything but a robe or a thing around the right waist or whatever, and they're they've let everything go.
We could all go live in a van down by the river.
or we could just not be too attached to the things we have.
Then we'd get
uh,
attached to the van.
But here in the
I
West, you got to have more than just a robe. You have to be practical, and you have to have a roof over your head, and or else you can't function here where we are. And in India, those gurus are almost worshipped, and people feed them and take care of them. And so each culture is a little bit different, but the road to detachment is similar wherever you are.
Yes.
I wanted to add, oh, sorry.
No,
I
you
was just
were.
okay. I was just gonna say, yeah, I just want to say, so my mom was diagnosed with cancer a couple years ago, and she had like 3 or 4 different kinds of cancer in her breasts. And um, she got the initial scanning and saw where everything was. And at that time, we had started working on um, metaphysical ideas. Josh and I were studying, and we were all reading like Carol Tuttle's book, Shifting Our Mindset. And my mom was working on her relationship with my dad and was working on um, her attachment to her body, and just she was working on a lot of things energetically. And by the time she went in for the surgery, the cancer had shrunk.
Oh, great.
dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they still did the surgery and they took things out, but the doctor was astounded. My dad, he's a physician as well, and he was astounded. And so my mom definitely recognized she definitely believes that her thoughts and her emotions had built up over years and caused disease within herself, and she recognizes that. And so she's been working on healing those things. But yeah, so we all saw the power of that just recently in our family.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay. Okay, my friends. Any other comments before we move on here?
Well, I really enjoy living in the material world, and I enjoy accumulating things and playing with them. I think the key is, you're here, you might as well enjoy it. Just don't get attached to any one thing or all your material possessions, because you never know. A flood could come, lightning could strike, and all of a sudden they're gone. And then you have to be like the people in India and say, well, that was good while it lasted.
Yeah, yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, that
Um,
non-attachment is really key to peace of mind because you can have two people in the same situation. One person has no problems and he's at peace. The other guy finds all kinds of things to complain about. And so whether or not you're attached or detached is an important point. Okay, we'll end with the short meditation here. Let us sound the